There's something about a great 2D platformer that never gets old. Tight controls, clever level design, memorable music, and that feeling when you finally nail a difficult section. It's one of the few genres where gameplay alone can carry the entire experience. If the movement feels good, you immediately want to keep playing. And the best platformers are the ones that stay fun no matter how many times you go back to them. So today, I'm going to guide you through 20 of the greatest 2D platforming games ever made. Games that define generations, push the genre forward, and still feel fantastic to play today. Let's get into it. Super Mario Bros. 3 still feels fresh because the game never stops introducing new ideas. One world is built around giant enemies, another has sinking platforms, then suddenly you're dodging cannon fire on an airship. The controls are what really make it timeless though. Mario feels quick and responsive, and once you start building momentum with the raccoon tail, the game becomes incredibly satisfying to play. I've always liked how experimental it feels compared to earlier Mario games, and every stage has something memorable about it. Rayman Legends is one of the smoothest platformers ever made. The animation is unbelievable, and the movement has a light, floaty feel that makes every jump enjoyable. The musical stages are the standout moments for me. Running through levels in sync with the soundtrack feels brilliant because the platforming almost becomes rhythmic. It's also one of the best co-op platformers around. Things go wrong constantly when you're playing with friends, but the chaos is part of the fun. Sonic 2 understood exactly what people wanted from a Sonic game. Bigger stages, faster movement, and more spectacle without losing the platforming underneath it all. Chemical Plant Zone still holds up as one of the best platforming stages ever made. The music, the speed, the rising water sections, it all sticks with you. And I also love how rewarding the game becomes once you know the layouts. Hitting loops and ramps perfectly without losing momentum feels fantastic even today. Donkey Kong Country 2 improves on the original in nearly every way. The pirate theme gives the game loads of personality, and the soundtrack is easily one of the best on the SNES. The platforming gets tougher too, but it rarely feels unfair. Dixie's hover ability changes how you approach jumps, while Diddy feels faster and more agile. Bramble Blast is still one of my favourite levels in gaming because the music and level design work together in harmony. Celeste is difficult, but the controls are so precise that every mistake feels fixable. You always know the game is asking for skill rather than luck. The dash mechanic completely carries the gameplay because it opens up so many possibilities for movement. I also appreciate how quickly the game restarts you after failing. It keeps the pacing fast, which stops frustration building up. Clearing a difficult room after dozens of attempts feels genuinely rewarding. Yoshi's Island stands out immediately because of its art style. The hand-drawn visuals still look fantastic today, and they give the game a completely different feel compared to other Mario titles on the SNES. The egg throwing mechanic adds a lot to the gameplay too. You're constantly aiming shots, solving little puzzles, and lining up enemies instead of just bouncing on everything. Some of the later levels are surprisingly challenging as well, especially if you're trying to finish the stages with a perfect score. LittleBigPlanet feels creative in a way that few platformers do. The physics give movement a slightly unpredictable feel, which makes every level feel more interactive. What really made the game special was the community content. You could finish the main story, then spend hours playing bizarre homemade levels created by other players. Some were brilliant, some were a complete mess, but that unpredictability made the game feel endless. Sonic Mania feels like the sequel Mega Drive fans wanted for years. It understands what made the classic games work without simply copying them. The new stages are excellent, and the remixed older zones add loads of surprises even if you know the originals inside out. I really like how the game rewards replaying too. The more familiar you are with the stage, the more satisfying it becomes to fly through it cleanly. Shovel Knight takes inspiration from classic NES games, but it avoids the frustrating design choices that some older platformers had. The shovel drop mechanic is brilliant because it works both for combat and movement. Bouncing across enemies or hazards never gets old. The boss fights are excellent too because every character has their own personality and attack patterns rather than just feeling interchangeable. Tropical Freeze is one of the strongest modern platformers because the level design is so creative. Nearly every stage introduces new mechanics without overwhelming the player. The movement has a real weight to it as well. Donkey Kong feels heavier than characters in most other platformers, but once you get used to roll jumps and timing, the game feels incredibly satisfying. The soundtrack deserves massive credit too, because nearly every level has a memorable track attached to it. DuckTales is one of the few licensed games from that era that genuinely became a classic. The Pogo Cane mechanic instantly makes the gameplay feel unique. The Moon stage is one of my favourites because of the music, but the whole game is strong from start to finish. The controls feel responsive, the levels move at a good pace, and the game never overstays its welcome. It's one of those NES titles that's still easy to go back to today. Super Mario World feels effortless to play. Mario controls perfectly, the levels are packed with secrets, and the world map makes the whole adventure feel connected. Finding hidden exits and unlocking new paths is still incredibly satisfying. I also love how much freedom the game gives you once you know where the secrets are hidden. Star Road alone adds loads of replay value because it completely changes the structure of the game. Klonoa feels different from most platformers because of the way you interact with enemies. Grabbing them and using them as a double jump gives the game a really unique rhythm. The 2.5D presentation still looks lovely as well. Even though the environments have depth, the gameplay stays focused and easy to follow. The story catches a lot of people off guard too because it becomes surprisingly emotional by the end. Super Meat Boy is relentless, but it works because the controls are almost perfect. The movement is incredibly responsive, which means every death feels like something you can learn from. The short stages help a lot too. You will fail constantly, but restarting will only take a few seconds, so the game keeps its momentum. Watching all your failed attempts replay together at the end of the level is still one of the smartest ideas any platformer has had. The original Donkey Kong Country made a huge impression when it was first released because of the visuals, but the gameplay is why people still care about it today. There's also a real sense of atmosphere throughout the game. The music and backgrounds do a lot of the heavy lifting, especially in stages like the caves or forests where everything feels surprisingly moody for a platformer of that era. Even now, it still has a style that immediately stands out the second you see it running. Ristar is one of Sega's most underrated games. Instead of jumping on enemies, you grab them using Ristar's stretchable arms, which completely changes how the platforming works. The movement feels slower and more deliberate than a Sonic game, but that's what makes it interesting. Swinging across gaps and pulling enemies towards you gives the game its own identity. The visuals and music are excellent too, especially for a late Mega Drive release. New Super Mario Bros. Brought traditional 2D Mario back properly for a modern audience. The level design is classic Nintendo, simple to understand but full of clever little ideas. The multiplayer completely changes the experience though. Playing with friends usually turns into complete chaos within minutes, especially during difficult stages. You spend half the time trying to survive the level and the other half trying not to accidentally throw someone into danger. Wario Land 4 feels completely different from Mario platformers because Wario himself controls differently. He's heavier, stronger and more destructive, which changes the pace of the gameplay. The escape sequences are the best part for me. After exploring a level slowly and collecting treasure, you suddenly have to race back to the exit before the time runs out. That shift in pace gives the game loads of energy and keeps levels memorable. Rayman Origins brought the series back in style. The animation is packed with personality and the platforming feels incredibly smooth from the very start. The game keeps introducing new mechanics at exactly the right speed too. One minute you're flying through a chase sequence, then suddenly you're dealing with underwater sections or tricky timed jumps. It's constantly changing things up without losing focus. Super Mario Bros. Wonder feels like Nintendo finally started experimenting properly with 2D Mario again. The Wonder Flower mechanic means every level has something strange waiting to happen. Some stages completely transform halfway through, whilst others suddenly introduce bizarre mechanics you will never see again. That unpredictability keeps the game exciting the whole way through. it also just feels great to control, which is the most important thing any platformer needs to get right. So those are my picks for the greatest 2D platformers of all time. From the NES and Mega Drive right through to modern indie games and Nintendo Switch releases. This genre has stayed relevant for decades because good platforming never really goes out of style. Some of these games are relaxing, some are brutally difficult, and some are absolute chaos with friends, but all of them understand what makes platformers fun in the first place. Let me know in the comments down below which 2D platformer you think deserves a spot in this list, because there are definitely a few games that narrowly missed out. And if you enjoyed the video today, hit that like, subscribe, and check the rest of the channel out for more gaming content. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.